Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as you are able and join me in the welcoming of City Council and the playing of National Anthem and the reading of the Invocation. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as you are able and join me in the welcoming of City Council.
Please remain standing as I read the invocation for tonight's meeting. As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities that are laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails and where justice rules. Let us also not forget those who've served our community and who are no longer with us so that we can continue to do the work that we must in their memory. Please be seated. Before we begin this evening's meeting, I'd like to welcome those who are joining us in person for the first time in 20 months and electronically into the city's new Brantford Council chambers. And I'd like to acknowledge the hard work and collaboration of our IT department, some of whom are behind me, and of course our clerks department for making tonight's hybrid meeting possible. It was also made possible by the hard work of our facilities department, who of course planned for and oversaw the construction of all the work that was done in this building. And of course, our cleaning and maintenance staff who work hard each day to ensure that each of us have a sanitized, safe workspace. So you might ask, why is this council doing this in-person meetings when other councils continue to conduct their business through virtual meetings? And the one word is safety. We can do this in-person meetings safely. And that is what we all have to learn as the pandemic transitions to being an endemic. And that is, how do we safely return to a normal life? And there have been a couple of important factors for the city of Brantford that allowed us to do this. First of all, everyone in this room is fully vaccinated. And I'm proud to say that all members of this council have provided documentary proof that they're fully vaccinated. Given the recent construction work, the heating and the ventilation system in this building is absolutely top-notch, and there's an up-to-date filtration system. And I think what we've learned from the public health authorities is that having a really good HVAC ventilation system, that's a very important component of reducing virus spread or the possibility of virus spread in indoor settings. The mandatory use of masks and 6-foot spacing, which unfortunately has reduced the number of people that we can accommodate in the public gallery. And then when spacing is not possible or mask wearing is not feasible, such as up here in the council chamber where we're within 6 feet of one another, then we've used plastic barriers, and you can see them beside each of us. This arrangement and pattern has been approved by the Brant County Health Unit, but I must say I really look forward to the day COVID restrictions are fully lifted, hopefully later this winter or spring. And at that time, the plastic barriers will be removed and we can move up to full capacity for this room. So I want to say that I'm very happy that we're meeting in person. It has been 20 months, 20 long months since we last had in-person meetings. We wanted it, the public wanted it, and frankly, my experience over the last 20 months has been that Zoom meetings are good, but there's nothing can that replace the in-person meeting. That is the human way to conduct meetings. It's the way we've done it in our history over centuries. So it's great to start this. We're making history, but the nice thing about this hybrid format is that it'll continue. So if a member of council is out of town, or if there's a member of the public that wants to come as a delegation, they don't have to come here to City Hall. They can connect virtually as we have been doing the last 20 months. So with that, I'm going to introduce our support staff tonight, the city clerk. We have the city clerk, Tanya Daniels, who is right beside me. And we also have the assistants of Lisa Madden and Jennifer Page down to the right, who handles all the microphones. And to my left, we have the city CEO, Brian Hutchings, and then of course, the ward councillors to my left and right. Lastly, rules of procedure. They have changed to accommodate this hybrid meeting. And for those staff and delegates that join electronically, you have to keep your video and microphone on until all times unless requested by the moderator or members of council. And all rules of delegations under the city's procedural bylaw continue to apply. And we have a full corporate policy number 50 regarding electronic virtual participation, and it's available online to review if you have any questions at the city website. And as we always do, we also remind people that all rules of decorum as described in the rules of procedure under Chapter 15 of the City of Brantford Municipal Code apply to all persons in a meeting room, including but not limited to the following. No person shall display any sign, banner, or placard in the meeting room other than materials that, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audio-visual aids necessary in connection with any presentation to be made to council. All persons present in the meeting room shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or the making of any gesture that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only on the subject that's in debate and shall not speak on any other subject. And no person shall applaud participants in debate or engage conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. So we'll move then to declarations of a conflict of interest. So members of council, does anybody have a pecuniary interest that they have to declare regarding an item on tonight's agenda? And if you do, you would push the button in front of you. Yeah, I don't see anybody. I think if Councillor Antosky were here, she would be declaring a conflict in one item, and Councillor Antosky is not here. She is a member of the Federation of the Canadian Municipalities. They're having a conference in Ottawa, and right now I hope she has safely arrived in Ottawa to attend the meeting. And of course, we have Councillor Carpenter joining us virtually through a Zoom connection, which is kind of interesting. You can see tonight how that actually works. So, no declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any? Well, first of all, remind people we do have a new procedural rule that states that urgent reports and resolutions, items 13.1, 14.1, and 14.2 are dealt with individually. So at this time, we'll be separating items in the committee reports. And prior to separating items, the following have already been separated. 12.2.9, endorsement of additional long-term care beds at John Noble Home. Councillor Carpenter has a proposed amendment. 12.4.4, proposed amendments to the City of Brantford Municipal Code, Chapter 478, outdoor signs and other advertising devices. Councillor at least advised us he may be bringing a referral motion. 12.6.1, appointment of members of council of various committees, boards, advisory committees, and task forces. And Councillor McCurry has advised he has an amendment that he'd like to put on the floor. So are there any other items contained within the committee reports that council members wish to be separated for discussion? And you would push the, if you're at home, Councillor Carpenter, the raised hand, or if you're here in the room, you push the speaker button. Councillor Vanderstel.
I'm hot now, am I? Okay. 12.2.8, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much.
Sorry, can you tell us that again, please?
12.2.8, that is the Brantford Public Library Board.
Anyone else in the council chambers? No, that's it. So we just have 4 matters then that we'll be dealing with separately. So we'll then take the Councillor Vanderstel. I understand you have the motion to approve all items in the committee reports 12.1 to 12.6 that have not been separated for discussion purposes. If you could please read your resolution, state.
I do, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. That all items contained within the committee reports, item 12.1 to 12.6, not separated for discussion purposes, be approved.
Thank you. So before I call the vote on the items that have not been separated, I'll ask our city clerk if you would please be kind enough to read the title of the items that are included in this resolution. Right. Yeah, seconder was?
Seeking a seconder.
Oh, seeking a seconder. Councillor McCurry is seconding it.
So the items then subject to the revote are as follows. From your Human Resources Committee, item 12.1.1, Environmental Services Organizational Update. From your Committee of the Whole Operations, item 12.2.1, Advanced Metering Infrastructure and Water Metering Replacement Project Update. 12.2.2, Launch of Climate Environmental Implications section of First Staff Reports. Item 12.2.3, Standardization of Equipment, Parts, Supplies, and Services. Item 12.2.4, Road Dedication Bylaw, Macklin Street and Dennis Ave. 12.2.5, Healthy Aging Strategy, 2022 to 2024 Action Plan. 12.2.6, Recording of Closed Session Meetings. 12.2.7, Community Physician Recruitment 2021 Program and 2022 Action Plan. Item 12.2.10, Memorialization of Walter Gretzky Parking Spot at Wayne Gretzky Sports Center. Your Social Services Agenda, 12.3.1, Assisted Funeral Services Transition Review. 12.3.2, Ontario Works 2021 to 2022 Business Plan. Committee of the Whole Planning Administration, 12.4.1, Red Line Draft Plan of Subdivision Telephone City Aggregates, Business Park East Phase 2. 12.4.2, City of Brantford Comments on the County of Brant Draft Official Plan. 12.4.3, Heritage Registered Project Part 2 Phase A Properties Recommended for Listing. 12.4.5, Fire Department Establishing and Regulating Bylaw Update. 12.4.6, Brantford Heritage Committee Report regarding signage for Prominence Point and Heritage Committee 2022 priorities. 12.4.7, Building Construction Process Review Task Force Report. The Finance Committee, 12.5.1, External Auditor Annual Independence Letter, Engagement Letter, and Audit Plan. 12.5.2, Update to Finance Policy 009, General Reserves and Reserve Funds. 12.5.3, Banking Services Agreement Authorization to Negotiate. 12.5.4, Capital Budget Management and Control Policy. 12.5.5, Quarterly Status Report and Contracts Awarded. 12.5.6, Quarterly Casino Update. From your Appointments Committee, 12.6.2, Appointments of citizen members to various committees, boards, advisory committees, and task forces. All items not separated for discussion purposes have carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we moved to item 6, statutory public hearings, and section 7, recognitions of achievement. And we have no statutory public hearings or recognitions of achievement tonight. So move to proclamations. We do have one tonight. Councillor Carpenter, I understand you have the resolution to approve the proclamation. If you would please move the proclamation, read the motion and state your seconder.
Okay, I only have the proclamation. I don't have a motion to move it. Oh, here. Oh, I'll just move the resolution, the proclamation. Whereas violence continues to be the greatest gender inequality rights issued for women, girls, gender diverse individuals, and whereas November is Women Abuse Prevention Month, and whereas gender-based violence is a human rights issue, which our community must work together to address through education and public awareness. And whereas 1 in 3 women will experience gender-based violence in their lifetime, and these numbers increase exponentially for Black, Indigenous, and women of color, and senior women, by the way. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has increased barriers to support and services for survivors of gender-based violence and their children and partner. And whereas this month and throughout the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, we acknowledge our community's support to the Wrapped in Courage campaign and commitment to ending gender-based violence. And whereas on November 25th, the International Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women, a Wrapped in Courage 2021 campaign flag will be raised in recognition that the courage of women alone is not enough. It takes an entire community to end gender-based violence. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaim November 25th, 2021 as the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and urges the citizens, all citizens, to recognize this day by taking action to support survivors of gender-based violence and become part of the Ontario's province's wide efforts to end gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. So the resolution would actually be, in addition to reading it, that following proclamation be approved. Is that the resolution you're moving?
Yes.
Yeah. And seconder, Councillor Wall is seconding it. So, Madam Clerk, since we don't have debate on that, would you please take the vote?
Item 8.1, being the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, has carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor: Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, Mercury, Martin, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Thank you. So we have no presentations or delegations this evening. So we'll move on to item 10, which is the clerk's report and communications. Councillor Van Tilburg, I think you've got the motion to receive the clerk's report and communication for November 2021. Would you please read the resolution and state your seconder?
Moved by myself and seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Wall, that the clerk's report on communication be received.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, if you please take the vote.
The clerk's report on communication has carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor: Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, Mercury, Martin, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Thank you. So we'll move to item 11, which are minutes. Councillor Utley, I believe you have the motion to approve the minutes listed on the agenda. If you would please read your motion and state your seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by my ward mate, Councillor John Sless, that the following minutes be adopted. 11.1, 11.2, 11.3 Special City Council, October 21, October 26, and November the 3rd, 2021. 11.4, 11.5, 11.6 Special City Council, Private and Confidential, October 21, October 26, November 9th, 2021, and 11.7 John Noble Home Committee of Management, November 10, 2021. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Utley. Are there any errors and omissions on the regular special council minutes or discussion on the John Noble Home Committee of Management meeting minutes? Not seeing any raised hands. Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
All minutes carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Slash, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
All right, we'll move on to the item 12, which are the committee reports that have been separated for discussion purposes. Councilor McCreary, would you please read the motion to place all the separated items from the committee reports not previously voted on the floor and state your seconder.
Mayor, yes, thank you. My seconder is my ward mate, Councilor Martin. Reads as follows: that all items in the committee reports 12.1 to 12.6 separated for discussion purposes be approved.
All right, so we'll now take up the separated items as they appear on the agenda. And I think that means 12.2.8 would be first. And that's Councillor Vanderstel. You asked that to be separated. That's the Brantford Public Library Board Southwest Community Center report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, I've been working alone on the on solving this longstanding problem in the ward of not having a place to meet. I'm going to ask for your continued support in this area. You may recall from the previous reports from the library board, I'll give you an example of the services that the library does support and provide downtown in the core. 70,000 questions. That's how many questions were asked in the last year. The library in that case works as a community hub, as a community center. And people come in for so many different reasons to the library for all of the help and the services they provide. Now, I understand that this is a 1,350 square foot plan for a development of a library branch in the Southwest with a sister plan for north of 403 at some point where we're looking for an advance approval so that we can go ahead and put a library up there eventually following the population increase north of Powerline. So the most important thing though is for our residents in our ward is to realize and understand that we don't have a place to meet for any of our community meetings, any of our ward meetings, any of the neighborhood association meetings without having to appeal to existing places and existing spaces. There is no community center. There is no hub. There is no communications hub. There is no place for anyone to meet. And Shelters Neighborhood Association members have been working for an extended period of time to ensure that we get those services as well that are offered in many other parts of the city. So Again, I'm asking for your support on this because, as you know, that section of Ward 1 is growing exponentially, continues to grow, and we need your support out there. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderstel. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
Item 12.2.8 being the Brantford Public Library Board Southwest Community Center carries on a recorded vote of 8-1. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Slash, McCurry, Martin, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councilor Carpenter.
All right, we'll move to 12.2.9, which is the endorsement of additional long-term care beds at the John Noble Home. And I believe, Councilor Carpenter, you've got an amendment that you'd like to put on the floor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and my ward mate is not available, so I'll be looking for a seconder. And the amendment is that 14.2.
Councilor Sliss has indicated he'll second your resolution, your amendment.
Thank you, Councilor Sliss. That item 14.2 be amended to include the following as clause D. That the sorry, I'm in the wrong one. I got it. Okay, sorry. That 12.2.9 clause A be amended to include for 40 long-term care beds. And just if I may speak to it, at the John Noble Board, we were looking at building a 20-bed facility, which was for those with severe dementia that have no place to go except for out of town. And it's a specific design that was approved by the province, and the province at the same time did a call out for more beds. And so we thought it prudent to extend and build on top of the same footprint and add 20 more beds. And those council members all have received a letter providing the information about why we need the 20 beds. 20 beds will be for those patients that say most difficult patients that are in hospital now, either on dialysis or on trachs. This will relieve the load on the hospital itself and a huge cost per day for seniors to be in the hospital, and will provide a space for them at John Noble Home of 20 beds, and it will make the whole facility much more cost effective. So I hope I can see all the council support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Sless, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was pleased to support this. It's been a number of years that we've been trying to expand the John Noble Home. When I chaired it back in the 90s, we were looking at ways to accommodate more people. And I think the emphasis on the expansion was just solidified with the pandemic. I think it was unfortunately very highly displayed to us that not-for-profit housing for seniors was far superior than for-profit. And I think this gives us another 40 not-for-profit beds in our city for folks to call home in long-term care. So it's much needed, and these are difficult folks to look after. And I think if anybody can do it, it would be our folks at the John Noble Home. We have stellar staff there, and I think I hope that the province supports our application. I believe they certainly should, because we're not asking for a lot. We're asking for 40 beds. So I would hope everybody in this would be unanimous. I think that would carry weight down in at Queen's Park. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Vanderstel, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Carpenter and Councillor Antossi for bringing this forward. When I first broached the notion of going 2 stories a year and a half ago with the Board of Management, it was a discussion that was a little difficult to have, because the expenditure out front is much higher. But when you're planning for the future and you have limited space on the John Noble Home grounds, it makes sense to grow up. So we did have to make some adjustments. Good thing the Committee of Management and all of the staff there work with a dogged determination to come up with the best service model for everyone in Brantford and surrounding communities. And I'm glad to support this as well. It makes sense as our communities grow together. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I would agree. I was also at the same meeting, and these are the long-term care residents, seniors who, as Councillor Carpenter said, are the most difficult to serve because of whatever issue they have. And unfortunately, not many of the for-profit homes can accommodate them. And so, yes, Councillor Carpenter is right. They end up in the hospital at great burden. And the original concept approved by the province was about 10 beds 2 years ago. Under Councillor Carpenter's chairmanship of the board, we were successful in getting that increased to 20. And so the idea behind this is there's the demand, 20 won't meet the local demand. And so the board decided that it would be appropriate at this time to ask the province to consider doubling that to 40. So that's the purpose of this amendment. And I also would urge all council members to support this. I agree it'll carry a lot of weight at Queen's Park. If it's unanimous, I expect that the county council is dealing with this tonight, and I would expect they also would be supporting this unanimously based on the discussion we had at the John Noble Home Board. So any other discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, if you would please take the vote.
The amendment to item 12.2.9, endorsement of additional long-term care beds at John Noble Home, has carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor: Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
So the resolution has been amended. Any discussion on the resolution as amended? Seeing no raised hands, Madam Clerk, if you please take the vote on the resolution as amended.
Item 12.2.9, endorsement of additional long-term care beds at John Noble Homes, carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Slush, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
All right. So we'll move to the next item that was separated. Item 12.4.4, which is the proposed amendments to the Brantford Municipal Code, the outdoor sign bylaw. And I believe, Councillor Utley, you have a motion to defer that you'd like to put on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm moved by myself and seconded by my ward mate, Councillor John Sless, that this item be referred back to staff for one cycle for a couple of reasons. One is to include manufacturers of advertising equipment and marketing to have their input to this amendment. And I'd also like to ask if staff could clarify for me now. I thought I heard 15 meters from at the last time we discussed this, but in fact I think it's 50. If I could get a clarification on that, please. Or is it 30? Oh, thank you, Jill. That's a long walk.
Thank you, Jill Binkley, Manager of Property Standards and Bylaw, through the chair to Councillor Utley. So there are a few different setbacks, speaking specifically about signalized intersections, pedestrian crosswalks, and that the number is 50.
Okay.
And there are a few different setbacks for different items in the bylaw.
Okay, yeah, then I thank you for clarifying that through you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I'd like to refer this back, just have some more discussion around it, make sure we're all on the same page and all the people that are involved have, get an opportunity to say their piece. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Van Tilburg, you're next.
This bylaw does not affect existing signs. Is that correct?
So through the chair to Councillor Van Tilburg, so any sign that has been approved through the permit process would be grandfathered in. So as we kind of discussed at the last meeting, if there is a concern, of a passerby or someone, a resident in the neighborhood, then we could certainly work with the operator to see if we could help with that issue.
Well, it's always the same sign that keeps being brought to my attention and to my eyes. There's many similar signs done now. I think they're pretty common, but they don't create the distraction that this one particular sign does on Brand Ave, Paris Road, the one that you take that way. That sign, particularly with the nights coming significantly earlier now, really blinds drivers. And so we hear about it all the time. And I know a lot of people have managed to get used to it, but that's the only one really that I ever hear people complaining about, saying, can you do something about that sign? And I almost think that this sign bylaw became here because of that particular sign. And yet the ones that followed weren't nearly as intrusive from what I'm hearing. I mean, perhaps they are, and I just haven't heard of it. But I do know the one on Paris Road, Brand Ave, is significant. So is there any way we can address that even further than what we may have already?
So through the chair to Councillor Van Tilburg, we can certainly look into that on a staff level and reach out to the operators of those signs.
Councillor Slutz, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm pleased to second this, Councillor Utley. We did receive an email today from Pattison Signs, who I believe almost exclusively puts these up around the city. And there was concern raised that they hadn't had the opportunity to discuss, the correct technical name I call it duration, how long the sign stays before it changes to the next advertiser. And there was concern with that basically they would not be able to sell any signs based on what we were proposing, and that they would like the opportunity to discuss it and maybe have Brantford similar to surrounding cities like Cambridge, Guelph, Kitchener. Theirs is slightly different than ours, but it allows them to do business where ours appeared to be prohibitive according to them. So if nothing else, we should have that discussion to see if there's a way to accommodate. And if there isn't, fine. But if there is, I'd like to see that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Edley, only one speaking engagement for 5 minutes at council. So, but I've got a question for Jill. The current signs, there's some discussion about the current signs. And if I recall, the bylaw that's proposed has light intensity standards within it that are based on what most other cities have done. Do we know whether or not the signs that are currently in the city, do we know what the light intensity of those signs are? Do they meet, exceed, come under this new guideline that's going to be proposed or is proposed?
So through the chair, that's an excellent question. I personally don't have that information, but we could definitely look into it. Normally, the digital type signs are programmed through a computer, so the operator could let us know what the settings are at. I actually spoke with a representative from Pattison Signs earlier today, actually, and they just sort of explained how everything is really automated now. So depending on the settings that a municipality requires, they can build that into the sign as they develop it or install it.
Right. So will part of the referral, would it include then trying to obtain that information regarding the current signs, just how the intensity settings compare to what the standard will be?
Through the chair, absolutely. We could work that into the update to council.
Okay. So not seeing any other hands raised for discussion. Madam Clerk, if you please take the vote on the motion to refer.
The motion to refer is carried on a recorded vote of 8-0 for item 12.4.4 being proposed amendments to the City of Brantford Municipal Code, Chapter 478, signs outdoor. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Mayor Davis, noting Councillor Wall is not present at the time of the vote.
All right, so we'll move to the next item, which is 12.6.1. This appointments of members of council to various committees, boards, advisory committees, and tasks. And there is an amendment that Councillor McCurry is going to put on the floor. I'm going to second it. So I'm going to ask you, Councillor Sless, you're the backup to this month and next, if you would please assume the chair of this meeting for the purposes of this item.
Certainly, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor McCreary, could you please move your amendment and state your seconder?
Mr. Chair, thank you. The seconder, of course, is the mayor. The amendment reads as follows: that Appendix A be amended to appoint Councillor McCurry to the Brantford Police Services Board in place of Mayor Davis for a term to expire November 15th, 2022.
Thank you, Councilor McCreary. Speakers, I have Mayor Davis.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to explain that by this amendment, I'm withdrawing from the Brantford Police Services to be replaced by Councillor McCreary. And in turn, Councillor McCreary will be withdrawing from his role chairing the Downtown Improvement Task Force. And if the task force sees so fit, I will then assume the role of chairing the task force. And I feel strongly that I need to take this opportunity while there's still time left in this term of council to focus more of my time and efforts on improving the situation in our downtown, as addressing those serious challenges is a top priority for me personally, and of course this council. Unfortunately, to date, with the various committees I'm on, I haven't been able to make the kind of contribution and that I had been making in the first year or two that I became mayor, and that's been due to other commitments and meeting schedules, a particular one of which is the Brantford Police Services. But I do know that the experience and the insights that I have gained by being part of the Brantford Police Service Board, and I highly value that experience and working with the service, that certainly that will assist me in chairing the Downtown Improvement Task Force, again, if the task force sees fit to do that, as enhancing safety and security measures is one of the three primary objectives of the DBITF action plan. In the same respect, I know Councillor McCreary's experience as chair of the Downtown Business Improvement Task Force will certainly provide for him an important context in his role as the Police Services Board member, the third member appointed by this council. And I'd like to thank Councillor McCreary very much for making this transition possible. And I'm asking for your support in helping to make this possible and help me to focus in the last part of the term of this council on this very important priority of the downtown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk, are there any further speakers?
Through to Councillor Sless. No, there are no further speakers that have indicated they wish to speak.
Thank you. Having heard that, please take the vote on the amendment, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Davis. The amendment to item 12.6.1, the appointment of members to council to various committees, boards, and advisory committees and task forces has carried on a recorded vote of 8-1. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstel, at least Less, McCreary, Martin, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will now call the vote on the resolution as amended.
Councillor Sless, Councillor McCreary has indicated he wished to speak to the motion as amended.
I guess we better let him then. Go ahead, Councillor McCreary.
Am I live? I guess I am. It's hard to get used to some of the new systems that we have in play here. Yeah, I want to thank members of council in advance for supporting me to go on Police Services Board. I've been off a number of years, and it'll be very interesting to get back and share the board duties with my ward mate. We've never had that opportunity before to work on the Police Services Board together, and I think together we can support and encourage our police service to look after the needs of our community. There are needs in our community that I think we need to reflect better on, and I think we're going to have a community-wide discussion about policing priorities here. I think that's one thing that'll come throughout our activities in the next few months together. I should point out that the mayor and I did solicit the input from every member of this council throughout the last day or so. And with the exception of one councillor who has not provided any response, everybody thought this was a favorable opportunity for the mayor and I to readjust our responsibilities. I would also point out that although we took some criticism for a similar amendment a couple of weeks ago, we did follow the very same process there, and all but I think one or two councillors did provide their input and their advice on that. And like that this landed on our desk tonight, but I don't see any complaint about this. And that's a positive step, I guess. I'm pleased to see that we are enjoying more or less solidarity on this issue tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter, Councillor McCreary. I get you two mixed up. I'm sorry. Madam Clerk, is there any other speakers? Okay. Seeing that, then could we please have the vote on the resolution as amended?
Item 12.6.1 as amended has carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstel, at least Less, McCreary, Martin, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
It's yours, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sless, for doing that. And actually tonight we've had a pretty good demonstration of how this is all going to work with Councillor Carpenter coming in virtually and a change of chair taking place in the middle of the meeting. Seemed to go quite seamlessly, and we know that's due to the hard work of our IT staff and clerk staff. So we'll move on then to, this is new, which is an urgent report section of the council meeting. And we do have an urgent report. And it's before us tonight in accordance with those changes in our procedural bylaw. And it's the Chief Administrative Officer's COVID-19 emergency update. And I understand, Councillor Vanderstelt, that you're the mover of the item 13.1. Would you please confirm that, identify your seconder, and proceed to read the resolution?
Thank you, Mr. Ware. I wish I could identify a seconder. Oh, Councillor Greg Martin. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Martin, that report 2021-721 titled CAO COVID-19 Emergency Update 11/23/21 be received.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item? Councillor McCreary.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you identify the nature of the emergency that exists?
Yeah, the emergency is that we have currently a state of emergency in effect. So the fact that the CAO is providing us a report it actually was done in every council meeting anyways, just that what this does is it automatically separates it for discussion purposes. And so it's really nothing for so far as this report is concerned, really out of the ordinary. But it's the fact that there is currently in place a declaration of emergency. Not sure much longer that's going to continue, but that places this report into the urgent status.
Would the same hold true for a climate emergency?
That's not the subject matter of the debate tonight.
Well, it has the word emergency in it.
Plus, it's a hypothetical, so I don't intend to answer it.
Fair enough.
Mr. No. Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know I got the fall scene up there. It's hard. Didn't have time to change the color of the hand. Sorry about that. Just a question to the CAO. During this COVID crisis and this, we're going through this, we have put a halt to employee recognition. And I just want to know, are employees still being recognized virtually in some way? We used to give them a small stipend and a thank you when they retired. Are we still doing that? Or did we stop doing that as a part of COVID?
You, Mr. Mayor, we did not do it in 2020 or 2019, but we did it in 2021. We had outside gathering at Mohawk Park, 4 different lunches for various sections. We broke the staff up in various sections, and we recognized retired employees and then also employees for years of service. It was outside with a small little gathering with people separated.
Supplementary, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CAO. Now, so the 2019-2020, we also gave the employees a small stipend and a thank you. Are we going to go back and correct that for 2019-2020 for the ones that didn't receive it because we couldn't have a gathering?
The ones in 2020, the celebration in 2020 it was retroactive, invited the people from 2020 to the 2021 celebration.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I can also confirm for you, Councillor Carpenter, that the staff recognition of those who retired, that continued during COVID. Mind you, those were all employees and it was happening in accordance with COVID rules that were in place at the time. So any other discussion on the report? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Item 13.1 CAO COVID-19 emergency update report is carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstelt, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we'll now move into resolutions, and there's 2 resolutions on tonight's agenda. First one is 14.1. It's a resolution from a special city in camera meeting held on November 9th, 2021 regarding a city-county cost-sharing initiative 2021-704. And Councillor Martin, I understand you're the mover of the item 14.1. Would you please confirm that, identify your seconder, and read the resolution?
Thank you. I move this, seconded by Councillor McCurry, that the Chief Administrative Officer be directed to finalize any outstanding issues with respect to cost-sharing agreements with the Corporation of the County of Brant for social services, children's services, housing and homelessness, Ontario Works, and other special programming and operations services, provincial offenses, which is prosecutions and court administration, paramedic services, and John Noble Home. And B, and that the city clerk be directed to place the following agreements on the signing bylaw for council approval. 1, agreement city and county shared services, social services. 2, agreement city and county shared services, provincial offenses. 3, amended agreement city and county shared services, paramedic services. 4, amending agreement city and county shared services, John Noble Home. And 5, lease agreement city and county health hub.
Thank you. So we have that on the floor now. Any discussion? Councillor Carpenter.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just would like to congratulate our staff and the staff at the county for a job well done. It's clear that when we get the politicians out of the way, the staff can get a lot of work done, and they did here. This was really good consultation and consideration, and we're all better off for it. And I just want to thank staff on both the city and the county for their hard work. Excellent work.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you, Councillor Carpenter. Not only was hard work, it was really innovative work in respect to, a relationship with the county that's had its ups and downs over the years. And the staff working together have come up with a way that addresses a number of services, and I think provides for a method of those services continuing to be provided jointly by the city and county to be done in a manner that is in a way in which it's more in keeping with a true partnership of two municipalities that stand together on a number of important issues that affect the entire region. I think it sort of marks a really great collaborative, innovative effort to overcome some historical differences in how those shared services were to be administered and governed. And I think it also, I'm hoping, marks a change in our relationship with the city and county into a different kind of a relationship, given that the county has changed very, very much. It's less of a rural municipality and now more of an urban municipality. So they have much more in common with us at the city. Many more issues that are common to us, whether it be transit or transportation or sewage or waste disposal. And although this agreement doesn't deal with those issues, I think if this is approved by both councils, could lay the groundwork to some other really innovative cost sharing, but not just cost sharing, service sharing arrangements that will benefit the entire region. So other speakers, Councillor Sluss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I too think this was excellent work done by our staff. I think led by CAO of the city. And I would like to think that this is a gateway agreement. I think this opens up many possibilities. As the mayor just said, there's so many things that we could be doing together that we don't do together jointly. And I think it would benefit both communities if we got to that stage. And I think this is an excellent first step to open up that opportunity to have those discussions and to start doing things that we should be doing. When people see the Gretzky Parkway dead end into Powerline Road, you wonder, how could that happen? Well, at the time it was built, it dead ended into the county. So there wasn't joint planning. Things were done independently by both communities. And we had a lot of things that look like that because of those very reasons. So hopefully, as I said, this becomes a gateway and we get on with doing many of the day-to-day practical things that we should be doing that I think this allows to happen. So I'm really pleased and looking forward to supporting this. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McCurry.
Thank you. I want to expound upon the comment that Councillor Sluss made, and I do have a question of staff. We did raise the topic of shared services, and we do have something on the table currently, I believe. I wonder if staff could advise of what progress, if any, we've made with respect to the sharing of animal services with County of Brant.
Through to Councillor McCreary, through the chair, through to Councillor McCreary. So the animal control project is still on the books for the city of Brantford to conduct, and the county of Brant has expressed these through their staff, their interest. There is the outstanding direction to staff to bring some program development to council so that they could decide on those factors within the building. And there is a plan through the capital project to address that this coming budget. Outside of that, we have still been in contact with some Brant County staff members, but the interest still lies there. They're just waiting for what the program would look like and what potential costs could be to be able to join us for that venture.
Thank you for that, Sonia. And the recommencement of discussion with County Brant would be a predicate upon our putting a shovel in the ground, I suppose, for our new facility.
Through to the councillor, yes, it would be.
Yeah, and I think we really need to get back on track with respect to our relationship with County of Brant. Councillor Carpenter alluded to politicians getting out of the way, but that's not how I remember it. I seem to recall that we made some pretty good strides in terms of partnering with County of Brant. Out of our original discussions, we have a boundary adjustment, an annexation that came about because of the original discussion we had a number of years ago. And I guess if politicians had gotten out of the way, we wouldn't have begun that process. So I do look forward to us renewing our relationship. We called it a partnership and prosperity when we first undertook that. And I know Councillor Martin, Councillor Sless, councillors who were involved at the time remember that. And I sure hope that we can get back on track and that this fine work that our staff has done is going to reset our relationship with them. And I hope we're having the same kind of discussion at the county around this issue. And hopefully there will be a renewal of their interest in partnering with us, their nearest and dearest neighbor, going back 150 years, to begin to recognize some of those efficiencies and opportunities that we did engage in a number of years ago. I think it can only be to the benefit of both communities if we continue those discussions today.
Thank you. Up next, Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Through you. It's great to be here. Okay. So the city of Brantford and the county of Brant are an absolutely beautiful and desirable place to call home. There are people literally coming here from all over the world to live and love and work, go to school, have a family. And I think that the cooperation between the city of Brantford and the county of Brant is imperative for this future. We are going to be facing exponential growth over the next 10 to 20 to 30, 40, 50 years. And if we don't cooperate with our neighbors and work together on joint services, work together on transportation, work together on climate impact, work together on all of the major issues of the city, we are not going to be that desirable place that we currently are. And I am so thankful to the staff cooperating on this. I sit on one committee that is with the county, and that's the Social Services Committee. And I get an opportunity to hang out with Mayor Bailey and Councillor Leverrier and Councillors John Bell. And the county and the city are so different, but so similar. And I just think that cooperation is the way forward. And this here has been something that's been worked on since I joined this council. And I can't believe that we're here. And I can't wait to see what we're going to do next. So kudos to everybody involved, because I think cooperation is how we're going to get to be the best community in Southern Ontario. And that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Councillor Vanderstilt, you're next.
Old habits die hard. I think I hit that button one too many times. Yeah, this is a precedent-setting agreement. I don't think we've ever come to this point in our relationship before. And I really want to impress upon members of council and anybody who's watching. I think that's 18 people right now, plus everybody in the gallery here. An incredible amount of hard work and dedication and information went into the body of the work that supports the document that you see us voting on today. But what it does, more importantly than anything else, in all of our communications that we've had with the county in the past councils, is it serves to level the playing field. And it truly does create an atmosphere where we can work as partnership. And it's incumbent on all of us in this council and in the county council to think in terms of the larger picture of not just in terms of our time that we're spending on these councils, but thinking forward into the future. This is a very crucial building block for how we take our next steps about asset management together, about transportation master planning together, all of the other regional opportunities that we haven't yet talked about. This is a wonderful foundation to all of those future conversations we should be having in order to plan for not 5 years, not 10 years, 25 years into the future. Crucial things that we need to have in place to make sure that our constituents benefit from the relationships that we continue to build. So again, not to repeat myself too often, but thank you so much to CEO Hutchings, senior management team, all of the staff that contributed here and in the county towards understanding what this relationship could be and what it could be into the future. And I look forward to that future. I look forward to working together as two communities working for their people together. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So I don't see any other speakers. So Madam Clerk, if you would please take the vote.
Come up now. Sorry, there's a little bit of a technical issue that the voting did not come up. It should be on your iPads now. A resolution from special city council and camera meeting held on November 9th, 2001 regarding city county cost sharing initiative has carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Utley, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Vanderstel, Slash, Martin, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Thank you. So we'll now move to item 14.2, which is a resolution from a special in-camera meeting held November 9, 2021 regarding presentation of offers for the sale of 84 Market Street 2021. And I believe Councillor Sless, you are the mover of item 14.2. If you please confirm that, identify your seconder and proceed to read the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, seconded by my ward mate, Councillor John Utley, that the sale of 84 Market Street, described as part lots of 12 and 13 South Wellington Street, Plan City of Brantford dated September 7, 1892, being parts of 1, 4, and 5 on draft plan, reference plan attached as Schedule B, being part of the PIN 32142-0017 for the sum of $3,050,000 by Vacano Developments Limited be approved, and that the required sales bylaw be presented to City Council for adoption, and that the City Clerk be directed to place the agreement of purchase and sale between the City of Brantford and Vacano Developments on the signing bylaw for execution by the Mayor and Clerk. Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, folks might not know what 84 Market Street is. That's the former Forester's building across from Victoria Park. The city has vacated that building because of the opening of this building, and it became surplus and it's being sold. And I think it actually went for above market, the estimated market price. So we did very well on that. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Now, I understand, Councillor Carpenter, you have the amendment, but before we get to that, is there anyone else who wants to comment generally before we receive the amendment? Councillor Utley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to congratulate Vicano Developments. They invest an enormous amount in our community, create a lot of jobs, and they provide a lot of revenues for our city. So I just wanted to congratulate them again on their wonderful support of our city. Thank you.
All right, not seeing any other speakers. Councillor Carpenter, you can put your amendment on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's that item 14.2 be amended to include the following as clause D, that the proceeds of the sale be directed to the City of Brantford's Affordable Housing Reserve, and my seconder is Councillor Wall. And just speaking to it, we know housing is important to us, and this is directing it to the affordable housing account. I wish I could direct it to specifically in affordable housing to geared income housing, because we know affordable housing is not really affordable to most people. So, but there isn't such a fund, so I'll call it the Affordable Housing Fund, which is one that exists. And I hope I have unanimous support. Thank you. I think I will.
Okay, speakers, we to the amendment. Councillor Wall, then Councillor McCurry, then Councillor Martin. So Councillor Wall, you're up next.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. And through you, I want to thank Councillor Carpenter for moving this amendment and allowing me to second it. This is a hard one for me. It's been a tough year for our community. In my opinion, and for my ward, two of the biggest issues we're facing is addictions and mental health and housing. And I want to fix it. I want to just do whatever it takes to get it done. And there's only so much we can do because we have a whole city to run and there's all sorts of things we have to do. There was just recently a story of a family in our community who lost their son because of a system that I don't know. Yes, this 100%. I wish I could double it. I wish I could triple it. And I can't wait to see what else we can do to start hitting these issues with a sledgehammer, because we need to keep pushing. I'll end my comment with a question to social services staff. How much of a difference is this going to make? What does this mean? I know it's a ton of money, but how much of a dent is that going to make in our housing issue? And I want to send my deepest condolence to the family that lost their son. My deepest condolences.
I think probably, Mr. Hutchings, would you be in a better position to answer that question?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Wall, the difference, if you remember, there's a mayor's housing task force and partnership task force. And I remind you, it's the mayors of the county of Brant and the mayor of the city of Brantford. Part of that financial plan is for the city and the county to work together to create 506 units. The previous agreement we just agreed to will help us on both on the capital and the county side, just have $15 million, as well as the city side of $40 million. The plan to finance this $40 million comes from $14 million from the sale of municipal property, as well as $10 million of increase in tax revenues. So that's $24 million. We do have also in that same plan sale of administrative properties, which this is one of them that was thought of. So that's $7 million we have to raise for that. So this goes towards our 506 units we're building, but also the community, the not-for-profit and our charitable sector also is looking to build about 340 as well. So this $3 million or close to $3 million will go towards the 506 units, which will help out build places like Shellard Lane and the place on Sturton and Stinson, a number of other in Colburn Street West. So they'll go towards this 506 units and financing our 10-year plan. This will be a major contribution towards that.
Thank you, Brian. And that young man's name was Aaron Denola, and it will not be forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wall, and for expressing those sentiments, which many of us share. So I'll move to the next speaker, Councilor McCreary, to the amendment.
Mayor, thank you. Through you to staff. My recollection is that Councillor Weaver brought a resolution, perhaps late in 20, early in 21, directing that the sale of all further municipal properties would place the proceeds directly into the Affordable Housing Fund. Does that remain in effect still, that resolution?
I'm not sure who has the answer. I don't remember that resolution, Councillor Weaver. I'm gonna turn to one of my staff if they remember that resolution. Sorry. I can't see you, Mr. Mayor. Heidi, do you remember that resolution? Okay, thank you. I'll pass it over to Mr. Vries.
Sorry, Heidi DeVries, General Manager, People, Legislative Services and Planning. I believe there was a resolution of that nature, except with respect to this property. This property fell within, as Brian Hutchings has indicated, a 2019 staff report with respect to the disposition of eligible capital assets. And the funds were to actually be allocated to offset the capital levy. And so this would basically be a motion to amend something previously adopted and was outside of that resolution.
So with respect to the capital levy, then, by sending this money to the Affordable Housing Fund, are we increasing the taxes to residents? Perhaps I've misunderstood that comment.
If I can to you, Mr. Chair, no, it isn't. We have not allocated this money to reduce the capital levy or capital reserve. So this will not increase taxes by doing this move, this will not increase taxes to the property tax ratepayers.
In that case, I want to thank the mover and seconder for introducing this tonight.
Okay. Councillor Martin, you're next.
Thank you. Through to staff, if this amendment wasn't on the floor, the money would go to the capital funding envelope. Is that what I heard?
Yes, it would have.
And is there a surplus or a deficit in that?
I'll ask Joelle Daniels, the treasurer, to answer that question if I can through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. That reserve, it never runs at a deficit, but certainly we're using every dollar we can in that capital funding envelope reserve to be able to fund our capital program, which we know is lacking a bit in funding. We know we've got a large infrastructure deficit at the city that remains currently unfunded.
Okay. And do you know what the next item or two that would be funded with this money if this amendment wasn't here? Or is that something you don't have?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we don't have that detail for this evening, but certainly additional funds in there would go to fund additional projects over the next 10-year period.
Okay, thank you. And it's for that reason that I don't think I'll be supporting this. We have a huge deficit in our capital, and yes, I realize housing is a very important need, but we also have other needs and other capital projects that are currently unfunded. And I think this money would be better spent going towards some of those things to keep our city infrastructure in good shape and progressing along. Because some of the items on our capital budget are health and safety items, and they usually have high priority, but it also means that some other things get pushed back years. And when you push things back too long, it becomes more expensive to do a complete rebuild of a road instead of just a shave and pave if it was done earlier. So there are repercussions to not staying on top of our capital projects. And I think this money would be better used in the capital funding envelope. We have other properties that we'll be selling later. We can't move forward with 500 units of affordable housing right away anyway, because we need matching funds from other levels of government. And if they're not in a position to move forward with a program, we can't build the affordable housing because we can't afford to do it all ourselves. We need support from the other levels of government, and we have time to build up the reserves we need for affordable housing. So I don't see the urgency with moving this money there. So I'll not be supporting this. Thank you.
Great. Councillor Van Tilburg, yes.
Thank you. The resolution that Councillor Weaver had brought forward, did that not supersede items like this? In other words, it would just automatically transfer them? Do we have to do this with every property that is previously allocated?
Through the chair, that resolution actually amended our delegation of authority bylaw with respect to the acquisition and disposition of interest in land. So where a property is sold pursuant to that particular bylaw, either through the real estate manager who has authority or by way of the real estate committee, that's where the allocation of those proceeds are. Every other report that comes forward from staff to council where council is determining whether or not to dispose of land would be up for council to determine where that land would go, except for if there was a previous resolution on the books, as there was for 84 Market. So the long story short, which I know you like, is that it would be up to council to allocate the funds so long as it wasn't pursuant to that delegation of authority bylaw.
Okay, so I will project another piece of property that would come up, and maybe I can get the answer on that. The old city hall, should we sell it? Would that go to the Affordable Housing Fund, or was that been pre-allocated when they were doing the task force stuff from like 2016, 15, 14?
So I can answer that if you like. If the old city hall are resold, the report would be outside the delegation authority for the real estate manager here and that date. So that report would come to council and that we'd seek approval to where those funds would go. We could say it could fund the rest of the $7 million for this affordable housing plan, or it could fund other things in the capital budget as was referenced before. But at that point in time, staff will have to look at what's been in the delegation of authority and how close we are to that $7 million we need to raise for that Mayor's Housing Task Force Fund. So it would depend on how close we are to that $7 million to raise it for that capital.
Thank you.
Councillor Vanderstel, you're next.
I did it again. I'm not going to touch it anymore. I'm going to leave it there. For you to Joelle, what is our current infrastructure deficit as we understand it today? Over 100 million?
If I can, through you, Mr. Mayor, and there's some discussion between the GM. There was a report that was just delivered by the Public Works about 2 months ago, talking about our annual deficit. I believe it was $21 million per year that time, I believe. But I'm looking at my GM and my director to see if that's correct, that number.
Through you, Mayor Davis, that's correct. I was just informing Joelle about that, as well as there's a report that brought it for the $21 million asset data good repair deficit that we have in our capital.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're trying to fund that with the infrastructure levy. Is that correct? What does the levy currently account for every household in Brantford? We're asking people to pay taxes to help rebuild our infrastructure to what amount on the year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there's actually two components. So there's the capital levy, which was the additional levy that was added in some years since 2016, which is currently about $5 million in the base operating budget annually. So that would be about $125 per household, assuming 40,000 households. There's additional contributions, though, to the capital program through the base budget that are probably close to between $15 and $20 million originally that go to support the capital funding envelope. So not the additional levy, but specific to be able to fund roads and parks and facilities and all our other specific capital replacement reserves as well.
So in short, we take this $3 million and we remove it from the capital funding envelope, and we're asking people to make up the difference on our infrastructure deficit costs.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure I understood the question. Could you just repeat that?
By moving the money from the affordable housing envelope or the mayor's task force envelope, and we move it into the capital funding reserve account, we no longer have to make up that $3 million in tax levy.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. That will just be able to help us fund some projects that otherwise we would likely need to defer in lieu of providing for an increase in the tax. We would have deferred projects, and this would allow some projects then to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I've got a couple of questions, a little bit confusion here. I'd like to support this resolution. And I think I understand why, because, well, the mayor's task force on housing, 506 units, 56 million. So we know 14 million in sale proceeds plus 12 million tax revenue that has to do with the sale of another property. But the 7 million that for the 506 units that comes from the sale of other property, where does that 7 million, I'll call it reserve, set aside money, where does that stand right now? Are we at 7 million? Under 7 million? Zero? Where's it at right now?
At this point in time, Mr. Mayor, if I can, through you, the right now we're just starting that fund. It's a sale. It's a sale of administrative properties in your plan, and this is the idea was some of the monies. So right now the answer is zero, but this would be the start towards getting towards that $7 million, and the other one possibly could be the old city hall or other administrative properties that we're selling. As you know, there's other properties we're through this master accommodations plan that we'll be selling as well down the road in 2 or 3 years.
All right. So when the plan was developed at $7 million, what properties was it believed would be sold or could be sold to make that 7 million?
It was believed that it could be 84 Market as well as the old city hall, which those two properties in particular, we thought that could help out with this with rising prices. We thought the old city hall might catch this, but we're not sure what that value will be. But those were those two properties that were in mind at that time when this was written last January.
All right. So to achieve this plan and make it a reality, we know we need that 7 million. This would 3 million and change would get us a long ways there. And then depending on what Old City Hall could be sold for, that might take us to 7 million. It might take us beyond 7 million. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the case. And if it was beyond 7 million, we'd use those other monies for other capital needs that Public Works and other areas have demand for.
So if the sale of Old City Hall brought in more than 4 million, because 4 million would bring us to 7 with these proceeds, we could then decide at that time to take those proceeds, use them for additional housing on top of the Mayor's Housing Task Force, or apply it to the capital levy, or any of our other numerous, some of which are underfunded capital needs.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, I definitely will support this amendment. It's it'll be an important component of achieving 506 units. So I can support it with a big smile on my face that we're making progress. So any other discussion on the amendment? Actually, I've lost sorry, Councillor Carpenter, I've lost the Zoom participants list. Tell you what, Councillor Carpenter, if you want to speak, you're gonna have to physically raise your hand. I'll watch for it because I've lost that electronic.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right. So I don't see any other raised hands. Can I get a Madam Clerk, can we call the vote on this amendment?
Sorry, just bear with us. We seem to have just a small glitch with the voting system, so just patience is appreciated.
Why don't we go, we're doing this a hybrid meeting, so let's hybrid it with old tech. How about the physical raising of hands? All right, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get through this meeting a little bit of old tech. So all those that are in favor of the amendment, would you please physically raise your hands so the clerk can note your vote?
Thank you, Councillor Wall, Councillor Sless, Councillor Vanderstelt, Mayor Davis, Councillor Van Tilborg, Councillor McCreary, Councillor Utley, and Councillor Carpenter.
All those opposed?
Councillor Martin. Motion is carried. The amendment.
The
is carried.
amendment's carried.
Thank
All
you.
right. So any discussion on the main motion as amended? Seeing no discussion, if we could. Councilor Carpenter, you have that. It's hard to see that hand against the golden.
Yes,
wave.
I didn't realize that when I had changed this backdrop to the fall. Yes, just speaking to this, I'm happy to speak to this. Those that may not know it, I grew up with, still have 10 brothers and sisters with a single parent. I lived at 56 Memorial Drive, which is affordable housing, geared income housing. And so in my heart, I'm passionate about providing housing for people, but we need to do something in the way of changing the phrase. The federal government recognizes the phrase affordable housing. 1,050 for a one-bedroom unit is not affordable for most families, especially those with 3 or 4 children. So we need to start thinking about geared income again. We haven't built one. Last one we built was probably 40 years ago, and that was Memorial Drive. We need to do that again. We need more geared income housing, not necessarily more affordable housing. So I agree with this concept and the work that the Mayor's Task Force is doing. There's also the co-ops in town. There's the ability for them to expand on the existing land they have. If we look at it and if planning looks at those properties and the ability to go up, we may be able to create some units there. They may be able to do that on their own. Some of them, for example, have some units that are large units, and if they built some new ones for accessible units, they could then change those large units to 3 bedrooms and accommodate more families. I know that's out there. I've talked to them about it. So I'm happy to support anything that moves this file forward. This is probably one of our most important things. And I think Councillor Wall said earlier, addiction and mental health. When we first got the casino was supposed to fund a downtown renewal, policing in the downtown core, and mental health and addictions. And it moved far away from that into special projects for counselors and for the public. And if we had kept that money there, we may not have the situation we have now. Just something to think about going forward.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other raised hands, and I'd like to speak to that because I agree there's a lot of confusion about affordable housing. But the Mayor's Housing Task Force, it's designed to create units that are geared to income. And in fact, it would be the only program in Brantford, pretty much one of the only very few programs that would do that, produce units that are truly geared to income. And that'd be primarily those who are receiving some form of social assistance or family allowance payment. And the other area of affordable housing is really not addressed through the Mayor's Housing Task Force. That is primarily through programs provided and funded by the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, and they're called affordable housing loans, and they provide a certain percentage of units that are financed in a building financed by CMHC that have to meet the federal definition of affordable housing, which I agree for a lot of people is not very affordable, but it's a rental payment that's less than market value, but not low enough to meet the needs of many of the people in our community. And that's the idea behind what we're trying to do at the city. We're trying to meet the needs of that portion of our community that needs geared income units. And that's what the purpose of our program is. So with that, I will call the vote. I guess I'm gonna have to do this old tech. Oh, yes. So all those in favor of the resolution as amended, please raise your hand.
Councillor Wall, Councillor Martin, Councillor Sless, Councillor Vanderstelt, Mayor Davis, Councillor Van Tilburg, Councillor McCurry, Councillor Utley, and Councillor Carpenter.
Okay. All right, so that completes the resolutions. There were no notices of motion, but I understand I've just gotten a handwritten note. Councillor McCurry, do you have a notice of motion? And I assume it's a notice of motion that you want to bring forward the waiver of rules? You're looking at me like, is that not correct?
You're correct that I'm looking at you.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes,
so why don't
I
we
have
just-
a notice of motion to present this evening.
Right. In accordance with our new rules of procedure, you have had to have given the notice of motion to staff last Thursday morning, I believe. So I assume that you didn't meet that time deadline.
I think you'd have to inquire of the clerk to be sure.
Through the mayor, the notice of motion was not included in the agenda, so there is a waive the rules prepared for the notice of motion to be presented tonight, so it could proceed through December cycle.
Why don't we put that resolution on the floor then, which is to waive the rules for the notice of motion. Did you want to make that resolution? Councillor McCurry, do you have a seconder?
I do. And my seconder is Councillor Martin.
All right. And so your notice of motion is that you be entitled to read the title of your notice of motion and that you're asking for a waiver of the rules for that purpose.
That is correct. I move, seconded by Councillor Martin, that we have leave to waive the rules tonight to introduce the following notice of motion, 15.1, recognition of Ann Westaway.
Fine. All right. So any discussion on the motion to waive? Seeing no raised hands. So, and this required 2/3 vote. So all those in favor of waiving the rules so that Councillor McCurry can bring forward that notice of motion, but raise your hand.
Those in favor, Councillor Wall, Councillor Martin, Councillor Sless, Councillor Vanderstelt, Mayor Davis, Councillor Van Tilburg, Councillor McCurry, and Councillor Utley.
Okay.
Those opposed,
All those opposed?
Councillor Carpenter. That has received the 2/3 required for the waive motion.
All right. So Councillor McCurry, you've got the go ahead. Can you read the title of your notice of motion?
Yes, thank you very much for that. The title is item 15.1, recognition of Ann Westaway.
All right, thank you. So now we'll move on to item 16, which is bylaws. And we've got a number up first and second reading. I believe Councillor Wall, you have that resolution. If you would please read your resolution and state your seconder.
I need it on the screen. Thank you. Sorry. I'm reading these, all of them.
Who is your seconder?
It'll be my ward mate, Councillor Brian Van Tilburg.
Read away.
All right. Oh, and it's gone. And it's back. Thank you. 2019-2021 bylaw to authorize the execution of agreements individually dated and listed on Schedule A attached here too. One agreement for shared services, social services between the Corporation of the City of Brantford and the Corporation of the County of Brant. Agreement for shared services, provincial offenses between the Corporation of the City of Brantford and the Corporation of the County of Brant. Amending agreement for shared services, paramedic services between the Corporation of the City of Brantford and the Corporation of the County of Brant. Amending agreement for shared services, John Noble Home between the Corporation of the City of Brantford and the Corporation of the County of Brant. Lease agreement regarding County Health Hub between the Corporation of the City of Brantford and the Corporation of the County of Brant. Agreement of purchase and sale, 84 Market Street. 221, 2021 bylaw to repeal bylaw number 78, 2002, a municipal code chapter 522, and to enact a bylaw to govern and regulate the fire department of the City of Brantford. 222, 2021 bylaw to authorize a borrowing upon amortizing debentures in the principal amount of $3.15 million towards the cost of supportive housing project at Marlene Avenue site. 223-2021 bylaw to amend bylaw 70, 2010, being a bylaw to adopt various City of Brantford policies and to create a corporate policy manual by repealing and replacing finance policy 009, general reserves and reserved funds. 224, 2021 bylaw to amend bylaw 70, 2010, being a bylaw to adopt various City of Brantford policies and to create a corporate policy manual by repealing and replacing finance policy. I think I lost my place. I'm sorry. 224, 2021 bylaw to amend bylaw 70, 2010, being a bylaw to adopt various City of Brantford policies and to create a corporate policy manual by repealing finance policy 001, reserve funds and capital expenditures, and finance policy 003, capital project surplus deficit, and adopting finance policy 003, capital budget management and control policy. By 225, 2021 bylaw to approve the sale of certain lands and premises within the City of Brantford. 226, 2021 bylaw to amend bylaw 152, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint members of council to various committees, boards, and task force for the 2018-2022 term of council. 227, 2021 bylaw to appoint citizen members and liaison members to various boards and advisory committees. 228, 2021 bylaw to amend bylaw 144-88, being a bylaw to regulate parking in the City of Brantford, Jameson Court, Schedule 7, parking prohibited at any time, Public Work Policy 021, amending on-street parking regulations. There's more, but I need the screen moved pretty please.
Actually, I think that's it.
No, there's 229, 2021 bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation, the City of Brantford respects the meeting held November 23rd, 2021. There we go.
There we go.
Thank you.
All right. So does anybody want any of these bylaws separated for discussion purposes at first and second reading? All right. So not seeing any raised hands. All those in favor then of first and second reading of the named bylaws, please raise your hand. Councillor Wall.
First and second reading, those in favor, Councillor Wall, Councillor Martin, Councillor Sless, Councillor Vanderstelt, Mayor Davis, Councillor Van Tilburg, Councillor McCreary, Councillor Utley, and Councillor Carpenter.
Okay. None opposed. So we'll now move to third reading. I believe Councillor McCreary, I think you've got that resolution.
Mayor, as you so often are, you are correct. Thank you. I'm the mover. Councillor Martin is the seconder. We move that bylaw 219-2021 through to and including 229-2021 be taken as read a third time and finally be passed and signed by the mayor and the clerk.
All right. Does anybody want any of those bylaws separated for discussion purposes or at third reading? Please raise your hand. I'm sorry, I can't see Councillor Carpenter if you could. Okay. All right. Not seeing a request for a separation of any items. All those in favor of third reading, please physically raise your hand.
Just one small note is that because there was one bylaw stricken, so the revised numbering would be 219, 221, and through to including 229. So all those in favor of the third and final reading, Councillor Wall, Councillor Martin, Councillor Sless, Councillor Vanderstelt, Mayor Davis, Councillor Van Tilburg, Councillor Curry, Councillor Utley, and Councillor Carpenter. The third reading of all bylaws is carried.
All right, so I will proceed to sign the bylaws, but we'll now move along and do ward announcements, and I'll just go from my left to right. And Councillor Carpenter, I'll fit you into the middle of it. But we'll start with Councillor Wall.
Am I live? Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so there is a community call out from the neighborhood associations looking for volunteers who would like to help flood the rinks for the skating rinks in all of the whole city, I'm sure, but definitely in the neighborhoods I represent. Also, you are all formally and cordially invited to a winter carnival in Harmony Square. Come on out. It's going to be amazing, but please make sure to practice social distancing and, do all the safety stuff that you can find conveniently on the City of Brantford's website. And you can find out more information about the winter carnival in Harmony Square this Saturday, November 27th on the Harmony Square Facebook page. And then finally, this affects the entire city and everybody you know. Tell your friends as part of the city's climate action strategy to increase the city's city's tree canopy coverage. The city is offering up to $500 or 50% of the cost to plant trees on any commercial or industrial property in the city. There are terms and conditions that must apply, and I hope you'll check it out. The trees must be native species to the area, and the application deadline is December 31st. Help us plant trees in our community. $500 from the city to help you plant trees, up to 50% of the cost. That's the coolest thing ever. Planting trees is awesome. Okay, thank you.
I don't think I've ever heard such an enthusiastic word announcement. So Councillor Martin, you've got some top billing there you have to follow.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a hard act to follow, but I'll give it a shot. We're most of the way through the month of Movember. And for those of you who know, I'm growing a mustache this month, as I always do this time of year, to support prostate cancer and testicular cancer. And so early detection is key to any cancer. So if you're, gentlemen, if you're 40 or over and you haven't had a PSA test done in the last 2 years, get one done. Ladies, if you haven't had a pap test or a mammogram and you're over 40, it's a good idea to get that done as well, because the sooner cancer is caught, the more likely the results will be good, of treatment will be favorable instead of disastrous. So I encourage everyone to do the normal testing that is part of getting checked up at your doctor. And if you know someone who is growing a mustache from Movember, please contribute to their campaign. Every dollar helps. It goes towards cancer research and cancer programs. So please support the movement. Thank you.
Councillor Schless?
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Vanderstel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you haven't already participated in the survey, the Community Safety Zone survey online at letstalkbrantford.ca, please do. The most prevalent complaint that I'm getting from my ward, and what I'm hearing in other wards as well, is the speeding and the reckless endangerment that has been happening on all of our residential and arterial routes throughout Brantford. People just don't seem to care. So this is your chance to engage into this public consultation process to find out where we should be placing our community safety zones and how to make our streets safer. So please, if you've already done it, thank you very much. But if we need all the input we can get from as many areas in the city as we can get it. So please tell your friends, tell your neighbors. That is mybrantford.ca/CSZ. And we look forward to continuing that conversation into the future to make our city safer, our streets safer for our kids and our families. Thank you.
Councillor Carpenter, you're next.
Thank you. What a great segue for me. Thank you, Councillor Vanderstel. As you are aware of, Councillor Toski and I had a ward meeting for Echo Place Eastward. We had the ward meeting in September, and that ward meeting was probably the most successful ward meeting since COVID. We had 80 participants online at Zoom and over 200 watching and more since then. And the police chief gave us an accommodation for recognized us as very successful. Their police services was very successful, be able to target their policing activity. Residents saw results the very next day, and our traffic department has come up with a tremendous plan that's it's cohesive for the whole neighborhood for stop signs and sort of traffic calming measures and recommendations. And we are able to get back to you this month, but we do have a meeting January 6th. It will be the Eastward Echo Place meeting, and we will then be talking about the findings that we have found and the solutions that staff have come up with, and they've done a great job of coming up with solutions. So look forward to that on January 6th at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a Homedale Neighborhood Association meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Via a video conference. So it's a very well attended, active group. And so if you want to attend, please do. The next item is really want to thank IT and clerks for executing such a wonderful job on our first live meeting at our new home here on Dalhousie Street. It really was well done, and congratulations. We've got to work on that voting system a little bit at the end, but other than that, it was first class. Thank you. And then lastly, I've got a Grinch message. There's two kids going around the Mayfair area slashing inflatable Christmas and destroying lights. People that don't have a lot, they invest a little money that they have to make Christmas a special occasion. And, they'll spend $30, $50, or $100 on buying an inflatable for their young kids. And then a couple of kids come along and slash that, all that investment and the joy that it brings to their children. So please don't do that if you're looking in. I can tell you that our bylaw officers and the police will be patrolling the Mayfair area. And if you get caught, I hope you have to make reparations for all the damage and unhappiness that you've done. So, bah humbug. Sorry.
Councilor McCreary.
Thank you. Well, if you haven't seen it yet, folks, you got to come downtown and see what it looks like when you move a story-and-a-half brick building 4 blocks to its new home. The Crystal Cottage is on the move. It's about 20 feet from its final position. If you haven't seen it, by all means, come on down and have a look. It's quite a sight. Secondly, we'll be publishing this tomorrow, but this council was fortunate enough to solicit the applications from 21 pretty good community members, one of whom is with us tonight. And council will be later deliberating and making a choice of one of those folks to fill the vacant seat left idle by Councillor Weaver's departure. There will be a public involvement in this. Each one of these folks is going to have 5 minutes to speak to council, and council will commit to this, I hope, with an open mind and be able to receive everyone equally and make a decision. I would like to say that there has been considerable disinformation spread in the community, namely that this council is obligated by some sort of former practice or policy to appoint the third place finisher. That is completely and entirely untrue, and it's regrettable that folks in the community continue to perpetuate such a myth. This council has 2 opportunities. One is to appoint a person from the community. The other is to hold a by-election. We chose to save the taxpayer $150,000. So we will be making that appointment exactly as we are charged to do so by the Ontario Municipal Act and the province of Ontario and the applicable statutes.
Okay, Councilor Vanderstelt, you'll be first in December. So, but tonight you're last. Councilor Van Tilburg. Yeah.
It's the hair that messes
It's the hair, yeah.
It's the size. I'm just as big as Jan. And that's just it. All I can say is it's really good to be here. And meeting with the other councillors again and meeting with staff, even ever so briefly, even in the hallways. You can't imagine the difference that makes. You get distant from people, even though we're doing things by Zoom, it's not the same. This is a really good feeling for me. I was just so happy to be here tonight and to physically watch my ward mate rhyme off the things going off in our ward with the kind of excitement that I used to get from David Newman. It's just a good feeling, and it's a reconnection. Like I said, it's different. I think that we're all looking forward to that ability to interact with one another as much as possible. That's been a long time. It's been 20 months. So I just want to, kind of say hello to all my councillor friends and all the staff here and all the work and the work that you continue to do. And we'll be seeing you next month. So thank you.
Certainly, I would agree, and I would ask if we would give all the staff that have really spent hundreds of hours preparing for this. You don't see, it looks like it came off pretty seamlessly, so we had a little hitch in our voting, but that got back to our old days of raising hands, but I've seen it firsthand, just the incredible time and effort they put into it to make this work. And I think it's really worked very well. And that's our IT staff, our clerk staff, our maintenance staff, our cleaning staff, our facility staff. I think we as a council should give them a round of recognition. So we're adjourned. The next meeting will be in 2 weeks. Committee of the Whole, Operations, and chaired by Councillor Sluff.